Welcome back to Incredible Machines podcast, where we sit down with incredible people doing incredible things. Today we have Graeme Stiles in studio, a founder, CEO, chief AI officer, husband, and father. We talk about things you don't see, like overcoming imposter syndrome, the hidden strains on relationship and mental health, and things you can't yet see, like the future of AI's role in work and the true value of trust in a partnership. So settle in as we dive deep into an episode filled with honesty, strategic insights, and the real lessons learned from building a business while navigating life's toughest moments. Let's dive in with the incredible Graeme Stiles. That question about what would you tell yourself if you could go back to when you were that skinny, really tall teenager at 16 or wherever it was, what would you tell them?
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely that kind of confidence piece of just having conviction to try and to push yourself. And I think struggled a lot with kind of the self-confidence side of things back then, very self-conscious in myself, and kind of let that kind of dictate my approach to work and a career and all of those things initially. So I think if I could go back, I would say, yeah, just back yourself, own it, and kind of everything else builds on top of that. So yeah.
What do you think this that like again I'll say it for emphasis, this is that because this is self-proclaimed, this is what I didn't know you when you were that age, but you said a really tall, skinny teenager. What do you think they would say when if they saw you now? Like someone just described you as a reacher as you walked in. Like look-alike, where that's like a unit, military unit, like that's been. But what do you think that person would they believe that you're you from the future?
I think that's part of it for me as well. Is like there's nothing, and to maybe reframe it, like there's nothing inherently wrong with being the tall, skinny teenager, but it was like an inward perception of like you're not good enough. You need to try and prove yourself. You need to try be better. So I think it goes both ways. Would people recognize me from that life? Probably not. But I also sometimes don't recognize myself as well, and that's kind of quite a hectic thing to kind of like understand, if that makes sense. I think it's part of the journey that I've been on with algorithm as well. And I'm sure you've experienced it too. You walk into a business that you've maybe created. There's often that like pinch yourself moment of like, did I actually do this? Is this real? Like these tables, chairs, people that are all part of this thing that you've created and have become your team and stuff that you've built over time. Yeah, you have to pinch yourself. So yeah, I don't know. A lot of people probably wouldn't recognize me to who I was back at 16. Yeah.
Yeah. What if you give yourself a high five? You reckon you like, geez, like,
Yeah, I think so. And I think that for me, when we were kind of going through the prep for the podcast and looking at the lifeline, etc., I think for me that's the thing. You don't often step back and quantify what you've done and the work that's gone into it. And I think, yeah, not all of it is good, not all of it is positive, but I think when you can look back and you see that growth and you can be proud in what you've done, definitely give yourself a high five. I think more people should do that,
yeah.
and give themselves a little bit of credit for what they've done.
Just before we get back, because I want to go back in time still, I want to stay there. But how do you still struggle with that? Um,
Constantly, yeah.
yeah,
I think that yeah, I'm gonna throw it all out there. That kind of imposter syndrome, confidence thing. I mean, we're chatting in the car. I said to you, I'm a massive introvert, so for me, it's a constant kind of struggle to overcome those things. And I think you build the confidence over time as well. And I think that comes with things going the right way or things that you've planned turning out how you want them to. But yeah, it's a constant thing for me. Is always that little bit of self doubt, that little bit. Um, I suppose of insecurity, but it also can drive you. It can also
mm,
motivate you to keep kind of proving yourself. If that makes sense. For me, it's never been a situation where I've really wanted external validation, but it's tricky when you don't have the confidence and you don't believe in yourself. That's a big one.
mm.
Yeah.
So you've got those voices, like I talk about obviously a lot. Sorry, in the back, just reminding you, and it's also a way to keep you humble. I mentioned that movie in the as we were traveling here. It was um law-abiding citizen,
Yeah.
and I love it. And I said like and we've had this before where some of my quotes sounds like I'm very well read, but meanwhile it's from a movie that I've watched. But he references Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius, I think, in the reference is said to have paid a man to follow him around whenever he was doing big speeches or
Yeah.
speeches to big crowds and stuff. And that man, have you heard this quote before?
The version I've heard is like the Roman generals when they were coming back from, conquering an enemy, they'd have a person on the chariot next to them going, everyone will die, like whispering in the ear to kind of bring them back to, you're not better than anyone
Yes.
else, like keeping them grounded. Yeah.
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 But it's a very cool quote. Yeah.
Yeah. So the one is the same thing, but it's basically so it says Marcus Aurelius had this guy, and after every big speech, there was literally his only job he was paid to do was to just come and walk up to Marcus Aurelius and say, "Remember, you're only a man."
Yeah.
And then they'd let it ground him. And I did question like so then I realized like he's obviously not married. Because my wife does that for me all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great. So in terms of you and you just so you live in that state where you've got this, and it is an entrepreneurial state actually of imposter syndrome that you and I that you deal with constantly. And what I've questioned this a lot because I have a tendency, maybe a superpower, to overthink things. But what I think what I sit with now is that, because I used to say, well, what happens if I'm right? Like I am an imposter. And the thing is, how I got over that and just moved forward was the people that ask that question or deal with the imposter syndrome, deal with it like they deal with it. They're not. They like the ones that are imposters don't know.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
clueless. They're like ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just you still deal with it, but you just work. You just go forward.
Constantly. No, constantly. And I don't want to make it sound like it's a negative thing, but it's just part of, I think, how I am, part of my DNA. And like you said, it's those just voices in your head kind of, questioning and kind of, yeah, it does motivate me as well. But it's whether it's work, whether it's training, in gym or whatever it is, there's always that kind of voice of, can you do a little bit better here? Are you where you think you are? And I think, yeah, it's been, initially it was a massive challenge, as I said, but I think where I'm at now, it's more of an asset, if that makes sense. It helps you kind of think through things differently, spot where you are potentially weaker, and kind of focus on those areas. Which I think, no, sorry.
Sorry, no, and then just I just want to see if it ties in before we move. Does it tie into that Jacko Willink quote?
Yes, yeah. So again, I think the quote is be 1% better every day. And the other one is prioritize and execute. Is that
That's it.
That the one? Yeah, for me it definitely is. I think slightly different context for me. That's in my world and our business, like I'm very process driven, very data and structure and kind of discipline, which is I think part of how I've moved into that space. So yeah, prioritize and execute for me means look at the noise, understand what is noise, and then only focus on the things that you actually need to be focusing on and kind of disregard the other stuff. Yeah.
No, I think that's great. Okay, so now to go back into the teenager years where you were and still are a Metallica fan because you were busy. We were talking about off air about their whiskey. I didn't know they had a whiskey, but that's great.
It's called Blackened, which is one of their songs.
Yes, it's an album or is a song as well?
It's a song, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So as I understand it, you Joburg, born and bred, then studied. We talked about work. Tell us, from working at Exclusive Books, we had this conversation about people at Exclusive Books. Like whenever I deal with the teams that they have there, I'm always like, I wonder if I could hire this person, if I could convince them to come work with me, because they're always like I've never had a bad experience. It's such word. With an Exclusive Books employee. They're always well read and they're always like knowledgeable. And I'm like, geez, okay, I wonder if I deal with this person. But so that's kind of where it started with you.
That's where it started for me. Yeah. So kind of coming out of school into varsity, didn't do as well as I should have going from first year into second year. So kind of failed a couple of courses. And my parents like gave us every opportunity, but my dad was always upfront. He's like, if you fail, I'm giving you the opportunity. If you mess it up, it's on you moving forward. So part of that whole kind of transition for me was, getting a student job and to start working and supporting myself. And yeah, I started at Exclusive Books. I was at the Rosebank Mall branch for a long time, so working kind of retail behind the desk, and it was awesome. It was like, working with students the same age as you. I was working with a couple of friends as well, and I'd always enjoyed reading. It's always been a part of kind of my life and what I enjoy. So being in a bookshop was amazing. You almost use it as a library. You could take books home, read them, bring them back. So it was cool perk to the job. But yeah, long story short, a couple of years into that, they'd started setting up their online kind of web division. I think it was as Amazon was kind of starting to make itself known and kind of become quite popular. So I think there was a bit of a sense of panic in a way of, we need to not just be kind of selling from a retail store. We need to have an online store that people can get books from. So started there literally as a data capture kind of person, taking books, loading them onto the system so people could buy them online. So like really, really early e-commerce days. Was there for, yeah, I suppose a year or so in that kind of web division. Learned a little bit about, what the internet is and kind of all of those things. And yeah, that kind of kickstarted me into the world of digital and digital marketing and all of those things. So from there, should I go into it now?
Yeah,
From
yeah.
there,
The
yeah.
next agency is Cyrus, and was
Uh,
that
there,
next? That second?
there was one called Cambrian first,
Cambridge was first.
which was they weren't just a web dev company, but did a lot of web builds. And I was again hired there as kind of a content manager. Um, and I guess that was my first introduction to like the agency world and kind of what would ultimately become, a career. Um, I met my wife there as well, so we started working together before we started dating, etc. So I met her there, so quite a big key point in my life. And yeah, from there I transitioned, still within Cambrian, into kind of a front end web development space. So I learned a little bit, how to build websites, which ultimately I would be optimizing and kind of doing the marketing for, but learned the back end of it. And then from there transitioned to Osiris, which is, I guess, one of the biggest and most well known online gambling companies in South Africa. And this is obviously going back a good 10, 15 years. Online gambling, I think back there was not nearly as mainstream as kind of the sports betting and all that kind of stuff is happening now. So it was, I guess, an interesting space to learn really cutting edge performance marketing. So that's where I first got introduced to SEO, which again, if we look at where algorithm kind of started, it was very much in that search engine optimization space. There was a guy there, his name was Doug. He kind of taught me everything I know. He's still probably the most technical SEO guy I've ever met.
I've worked with, so just to pause there,
Yeah.
I've worked with people, and I work with people currently that have that gambling, like the online betting stuff
Yes.
background
Yeah.
in their quiver, and it's like, I think it's so great because, not because I love that industry at all, but like the numbers that you deal with.
Yeah.
It's like we had a UX team, UX guy specifically. We used to go to the UX conferences and stuff like that. And I remember I didn't go to the one, and but the team had to come back and talk about which were the best presentation. They actually said Pornhub was like, so, because it's just, the numbers are ridiculous, and you can make a change and you can see results quite quickly. And that's the gambling is like that, I guess. You can see numbers moving.
And ultra competitive. So you've got all the affiliate marketers, you've got all the different companies, huge budgets behind it as well. So yeah, like you said, there'll be quite a number of people in the performance marketing industry in South Africa who have that background. It was a space to really learn a lot really, really quickly. But yeah, it wasn't the industry for me either. I just didn't like what it stood for. So yeah, kind of moved off from there, and that's where I moved across to Quirk. So I kind of learned a massive amount very, very quickly at Osiris, and then applied for an SEO position at Quirk, which I'm sure you remember. They're kind of one of the main local agencies going back a few years.
Massive board, and I think, was it Rob? Who was
Rob
that?
Stokes.
Yeah, Rob Stokes. I
Yeah.
listened to Rob Stokes speak before. I found him incredible. Like
Yeah.
the learning. I loved the pivot that they had, the side learning bits, and I have client partners now that still talk about Quirk and the learning
Quirk
and
education,
yeah.
and it became Red and Yellow. They bought the red and yellow. So yeah, that was super cool. It was like trying to interview at Google to get in there.
How many times did you interview?
Eight interviews. So that was interesting, but eventually I got in.
Why do you think, just before you get, because I saw that, but why was that 8 interviews?
I think whoever was running it was taking a leaf out of Google's book at the time. So it was 8 interviews. It wasn't like it was stretched out over a long period of time. It wasn't like you interviewed and they were like not sure, and then 6 months later you came back. It was 8 interviews in like a 2-week period. So you interview with the main person that was going to hire you. Then there were like committee interviews. They called them Christmas parties. So you'd have a whole bunch of random people from the business that would check for culture and cultural fit and all those things. So yeah, I'm not actually sure why it was 8, but it was a long process.
Yeah, because I've worked on I've worked on 3 now. We have 3,
Yeah,
and I go last because I hire them almost. I'd hire the person almost immediately
yeah.
if I was first. So it's a real problem because I just believe in I'm an optimist, like an entrepreneur. So I believe in that they can do, and they can also. The thing I'm doing, I kind of, not to be self-deprecating, but like I believe that anyone can do it. So, and it's something I'm working on. So I have to filter them before they get to me.
Yes. Yeah.
And then that's probably going to be the easiest interview thing, even if it's a third one and it's built up. Like, now you're speaking to John and you've done these 2. Like, yeah. So sometimes I'll have a coffee up front as the first interview. So sometimes it'll be 4,
Okay.
a bonus one. But
Makes
yeah,
sense.
so just on quickly an algorithm. Have you copied any of those? You don't do 8, but do you work like that at all?
We've tried different things like that. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Similar to you. Definitely not 8. It's something that we've had to refine, I guess, as we get a little bit bigger and we grow, because I think before, like, it's very gut. I will sit down with a person.
Yeah.
A CV can always say one thing, but it's kind of very quickly in chatting to someone, I'll make a decision, and that doesn't always work out. So I hear you. You need to start having a bit of structure to it.
Yeah.
So we do now. We've got kind of different processes and stuff mapped out.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Definitely
interesting.
not 8. I don't think you should subject anyone to 8 interviews.
Okay, but you managed to get in and get
Yes.
the 8, and there was about 5 years. So take us
Yeah,
through
it was
them.
amazing. So
Yeah.
got in at the Joburg office fairly early days there. We were like 10 or 15 people when I joined, and then it very quickly over the next 5 years went up to, I think, almost 80 people. So it was literally as Quirk was kind of taking off. And yeah, it was amazing. I learned a huge amount around kind of what it's like to be in an agency, what it's like to be a part of an agency. From day one, it was kind of like, throw you into client meetings, pitches, all of those skills, which became critical later. It was a massive learning opportunity. But I think, again, just kind of the thing that I struggled the most with, and just bringing it back to what we're saying now, is still that confidence side of things. Like, I was the SEO specialist, which by default you're kind of almost like a data analyst, numbers guy. Very easy to be the quiet specialist and just focus on what you're doing. So I kind of optimized that space, but I wasn't really looking at, how do I grow within an agency? How do I have a voice within the agency? How do I start becoming a leader in a business and stuff like that? That wasn't really on the radar. So it was a great way to learn the client piece, to understand what it means to be able to, present to a client, essentially a consultant. How do you actually provide value in your specialty and in your area of knowledge? Learned a huge amount there. And I think during the course of that journey towards the end, I think there were a couple of people who, I guess, set me on the right path, or at least gave me kind of that mentorship element to look up to. And I think one of them, I don't know if you ever came across someone by the name of Justin Spratt.
I know that name, yes.
Yeah. So he was heavily involved in the Joburg office for a while there. He was the MD there. But very like a natural business person, like very commercially focused, hectic character as well. So he fitted into the agency world perfectly. But I think that was kind of the first time my eyes were open to, how do I scale like myself above being just a specialist doing work for clients, to actually I could make a business out of this. And that's where that kind of thought process
So
started.
he helped you move out of that quite special, or think about moving out
He
of the
tried to
quite
push me out of it.
specialist.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that's a real role. People get stuck in that quite specialist role, and that's it for
Exactly.
them.
Exactly. Yeah.
And it's very it can be comfortable because you're not putting your head above the precipice to take any grenades.
Yes.
But then you got to risk. We say this: you got to risk it to get the biscuit.
And especially if you're an introvert, like then that's your happy space. You know, like just lock me in a room, let me work the strategy, let me deliver the results. I'm happy to speak to the client, but like that's a really safe space. Whereas to step outside of that and to whether it's start a business, run a business, or like any of those things, it's a completely different headspace that it's not a comfort zone for me at least. Yeah. And I think he kind of pushed me in that direction to say, cool, you know, you're good at this stuff, but maybe try find a voice, maybe. And I don't even know if he was doing it intentionally. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But I think either way, it really kind of helped me look at what was next. Yeah.
One thing we have skipped over is the heavy metal.
Yeah.
And I think you still love heavy metal. Do you still drum?
I haven't in a long time. I was actually chatting to some friends and my wife recently about getting an electric kit. So keen to do that again. But yeah, going back, I guess probably standard 8-ish at school. Sleep over at a friend's house, and he had a cassette tape with Metallica's Black Album recorded on that, and he put I think it was his dad's, and he put it on, and I was just like mind blown. Like this is it. And like in the context of the time, like rave was massive, so everyone at school was into like the rave scene, and so it didn't add to my cool points, but yeah, we had a really close knit group of friends who were all into the same music, and we've all stayed like diehard metalheads and metal fans all the way through to today. So yeah, it's a big part of my life. Actually going to, and it sounds scary, but it's not. There's a big festival in France called Hellfest. So almost think of it as like the Tomorrowland of heavy metal.
Okay.
So we're going to that next year. Should be all the amazing bands that I want to see all in one place. So looking forward to that. But yeah, metal music is
And you've kept it up, and then but you're looking at the drumming now. Okay, so back to it, and you were at Quirk, for about around 5 years, 5 year
it was
plus,
5.5
and then you
years, I think,
decided
yeah.
to take this plunge into entrepreneurship.
Yeah.
Did you, before we get into that,
Yeah.
did you know you were pregnant? Were you married at Quirk?
We got married when I was at Quirk still.
Okay. And then did you know you were pregnant when you decided to jump off the cliff and build a plan on the way down?
Just
okay, so you did
so
know.
it was kind of at the same time that we got the news as I was pulling the trigger on the business side of things. So yeah,
Wow.
very, very, I don't want to say stressful, but scary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I didn't yet know what that meant. Like I was going, cool, I'm kind of over Quirk where it is now. And a lot had changed. It had been bought, and like there was a lot of
The transition to Miriam, I think, eventually.
Miriam, yeah.
Miriam.
And then it got squashed into whatever WPP made it. And kind of prior to that as well, there was kind of this shift in the business from, I guess, more of a performance focus, which was kind of my space. And they definitely shifted more into kind of, let's take on the big creative agencies, let's become more creative, which in itself is not a problem, but I think they sacrificed the performance piece in order to do that. So there was a combination of all of those elements, plus me starting to think around, I think I can do this. It would be really cool to do this my way and to start something. So yeah, I just resigned at Quirk, and I think I was in the notice period when we found out that we were expecting Olivia, who is my daughter, and yeah, she's the same age as Algorithm because of that. So
yeah, it's your birthday.
very, very nerve-wracking. I think I remember a conversation with my parents, and they were like, okay, number one, are you sure you want to be starting your own business? Because my dad, like I think probably the hardest working person I've met, like throughout my childhood. He worked really, really hard and was very successful in his career, but it was very corporate focused. So I think for him to see me maybe starting something outside of that world, like he just asked in a nice way, are you sure? You're giving up a solid job here. You're giving up a potential career to start something. Have you thought it through? Are you sure? And then you layer on top that, finding out that we're pregnant with Olivia, people just ask the question, are you on top of this? But it also motivated me quite significantly as well. So there's nothing motivates you like realizing, cool, this has to work.
Burn the boats, they
Yeah,
say. Yeah,
exactly, 100%. So yeah, it was a bit scary, but yeah,
it's
it worked out.
terrifying.
It worked out.
It would have
Yeah.
been terrifying. And I often think about this, like if I could go back in time, and I'm multiple. I don't know if I'm just like dropped. I was dropped really young or something. But if I could go back, and would I do it again, given what I know and how much work it actually was when I thought it was going to be way easier because I've done it and had relative success. So, um, and my answer is generally like I don't think I would, like, knowing what I know, even though it's like I'm pretty happy with my lot in life. Like it's like given it's better that ignorance can be bliss, and it
Yeah,
can help
yeah.
me go and push because I just don't know what's coming.
Yeah.
I just got to do that, and I think I resonate with a lot of what you've got. That 1% different, better, and then also just do the thing that you need to do right now. And sometimes it's like put one foot in front of the other, and walk and just stay upright and let's get it done.
For sure.
Um,
Yeah.
so like that, but that's and you started off from home. There's no office space. You just had clients already, or you.
I had one or two clients, but yeah, started in my bedroom at home. I was lucky in the sense that there was a small transition period between leaving Quirk, them still needing someone who could do what I did. So like I had a bit of a runway where they were essentially one of my first clients that helped cover the bills for the first couple of months. But it wasn't like there was a long runway. It was a case of, okay, this is started. Now you need to figure out all the other things that go with you know making it a business, not just a consultancy. Like I had to suddenly start being able to sell to clients, something that I'd never had to do before. Someone else always did that. You were brought in as the specialist when the client wanted to chat to you, but yeah, so there were all these new elements that became really critical. And again, I think there's nothing that forces you to learn and develop quickly than being thrown into it. And like you said, the boats are burnt, so you now have to make this work. So yeah, that first, I suppose, year or so was very scary, but also learnt and grew very, very quickly as a person, individually as well. Yeah, very, very quickly. I guess thrown in the deep end is the word.
You're selling and you invoicing and you like
and
all the
and you're
things.
doing the work, and you're doing everything. And then you kind of start getting. And I don't know if you've felt this way, but it's almost like starting a business 2 or 3 times as you get through the different stages. And we're very much in one of those stages now. So it's like and I'm struggling a lot at the moment as well, because it's a new space again. It's like, the next phase for algorithm is not something that I've done before. So again, it's the next level up. But where I'm going with this is you kind of have these little transition periods. And I think the hiring of your first, team member, growing from, 1 to 2 to 3 people is a big one. And suddenly you've got like this little dynamic. And then I think there's another one at like 10 people where it's now not just I don't know what you call it, like a consultancy freelancer with some people working with you. It's now a business. And kind of there's been a few of these, I guess, steps along the way that have felt like a whole new business. And again, that's a challenge because it brings you back, as we said just now, the voices in your head are like, can you do this now? It's not the same anymore. Are you ready for the next phase? And you have to prove yourself wrong or right, whichever way you look at it, to move it forward again.
I saw a lovely clip recently, and it was off of a podcast, and it was, I think it was like Seth, one of the comedians, Seth Rogen or something like that, and he said he read a research paper or a thing where it was that the all the studies of success, out of all of them, they try to find, like, we pattern finding animals, like that's what we do. We like try to find patterns. They try to find like what was the commonalities of these successful people that have made it. I think it was in Hollywood he was speaking specifically. Maybe it wasn't a research paper, but anyway, it was of the successful people, and he talked about who played Gandalf? Uh,
Ian
Ian, yeah,
McKinnon?
yes.
Yeah.
So Ian, no one ever heard of it until he was 65 or something like that,
Yeah.
and he played Gandalf. Like
Yeah.
now he's like I was like, so, but the one thing, the only thing was that that made people successful that they had in common was that they didn't give up.
Yeah.
They got up, they fell down 9 times, got up 10 times, and that's it.
Yeah.
It was like the one thing. So I was like, that's terrifying. It's also kind of a relief, the yin and yang of it. Like it's
Yeah.
terrifying because there's no map to follow.
It resonates so much. Yeah.
There's just the fact that I have to get up and do the thing now
Yeah.
because it has to work somehow.
I mean, if you look at, and again, this, I don't know, became apparent to me when I did the Lifeline exercise. It's like, if I'd intentionally tried to plan how to get into a career in SEO, performance marketing, and then to build a business from that, there was no way for me to, it was completely accidental, if that makes sense. Like from not doing as well in varsity in my law degree as I should have, so that became not an option anymore, to starting at Exclusive Books, to somehow ending up being an SEO specialist at Quirk and then building, algorithm of, like, there's no way you can plan for that. So there is so much luck involved combined with hard work. So it's like when those opportunities come, to your point, you just got to push and you got to go for it. And do you know what you're doing? No. And I think that's part of what, and I don't talk about this often because it makes me, it in a way sounds cheesy when I hear people talk like this, but for me, to try and replicate that for other people is a big part of what algorithm is. We have always had an internship program that is key. If I can speed up or give someone that path, and then they just take the opportunity and kind of build on that, then that's worth something. It's like all the work we do for clients, yes, that's important. But if we can give people that opportunity, because it's really difficult, as I've just said, like, how do you, even if you want to get into that space, you can't go study it. There's starting to be courses and stuff like that, but to get that practical experience to break into an industry like SEO, performance marketing, it's really, really hard to do unless you are lucky enough to stumble into it and someone gave you the chance to get that experience and that kind of growth. So yeah, long story there, but I think that is key for me as well. If we can do that for other people, then we're doing something right as well.
Yeah, very aligned. I love that. It's like that 3D printer. What's cooler than a 3D printer? 3D printer that prints other 3D printers. The growth of other people. As an agency previously, and I'm trying to get this right now with the company now, but we used to offer them. We used to focus on 3 pillars, and it was learning and education, because we wanted people that were upgrading their firmware, like they were literally getting upgrades. And then because that's nice for a company to have those type of people, but it's also, we'll support them and they get the education and they get paid for from courses. Eventually it escalates to, I went with my lead developer to South by Southwest in 2018, the first time I went, and like that's where it can go. And you want those people that they've had that knowledge like that, and they're making everyone, even if it's by osmosis, because that is a thing, like people get better because of that. So education. And then the thing that we've got, then we used to offer free gym. So we would have like a session, and it was with CrossFit at the beginning, which I never got any developers to go, but then eventually we kind of moved to something else. And because the same reason Discovery would offer Vitality and give you free gym is because they just want you to be healthy, because that benefits them.
Totally.
And you want to be less. So employers
mutually beneficial.
Yeah, 100%. So employers don't want their people to be sick, and generally people don't like to be sick. So that's a win-win. That's it. And they like to be educated. And then the next thing, the one that I'm never very good at this, but I'm trying really hard now at the moment, is a social responsibility thing. So reaching out and working with the community and building and stuff like that. And because one of the best things I think I experienced was like in the first year of agency entrepreneurship was, we did Madiba Day, and we went to visit these kids, and we were a team of like 6 or something we got to quite quickly. And we came back that day of spending it at the orphanage, and it was like the best day. And we'd been the day before we had pitched to Mr. Price or something like that,
Yeah.
and we thought that was the best day. And we just like realized this trumped everything. It was so much better just being able to go and help people and change their lives for that day. It was like the best thing. So that's the sort of the third pillar. Sounds like the education piece is big with in algorithm, and it's like I think it's a Google mindset that I don't know. You can tell me where you got it from, but we wanted that when people left us, because they would eventually. It's just the way the world works now. It's not like my dad who's 35 years at his company, and it sounds like your dad is.
He was the same.
Yeah. The when they leave, they go to the next place and they go, cool, when's gym? Is it on Wednesday? And the company goes like, what? Like gym? And like, no guys, you gotta have gym. Like there's no gym here. Like, and then it pushes your competitors to be better, and then you have to be better than them in some other way.
Yeah.
And you constantly, I don't know if that's a Google thing or.
I think it is. I think, yeah, it resonates. And I think you tying that to the education side of things as well. I think all of those companies, I think I got it a lot from Quirk as well, being in that environment, because as you said earlier, they were very strong in that space. But if you're not developing your employees and the people on your team, whether it's, like you said, physically or mentally or whatever, yeah, you're missing out. They're missing out. And like you said, it's getting much more competitive from a employer point of view as well. So yeah, I mean, I think these days we even see it on things like, work from home days and all of those. It's like you have to be adding value to your employees and not just taking value from them. I think that's what you're saying. It's key.
Yeah. Okay. And how's that? Because I tested a 4-day work week at one stage, didn't work really well. And for a couple of reasons. But what things are you trying?
Yeah, my team, when they listen to this, will laugh, because we have constant like friction at work. Everyone wants as many work from home days as possible, and I feel often like I'm the stick in the mud. I'm like, no, as few work from home days as possible. For me, it's not that I'm so much worried about are they going to be productive and do what they need to do. Like, the trust needs to be there. If the trust isn't there, then we've got bigger problems. So it's not even about that. For me, it comes down to what we just spoke about. We've got a lot of junior people who need to learn, and they need to learn, you said it now, through osmosis. And like, you can't really learn, or in my mind, you can't learn as quickly and efficiently sitting at home in isolation. And yes, Google Chats and Teams is wonderful, but you're not able to just sit in the environment and hear the specialist with 10 years experience talking to someone with 20 years experience, and like, just that conversation is worth like its weight in gold, and you're going to miss that. So that's kind of one of the big reasons. The other one is kind of like a cultural thing as well. You can't become a team, and you can't have a business that is properly team structured and driven if everyone kind of only gets together for an hour on a Teams call. Like, it just, in my mind, doesn't work. So
I totally agree with you.
I'm not always popular with it, but
yeah, I mean, I've seen the case studies of WordPress having like end of the year function is when everyone meets and they meet on some island, they have a party.
yeah,
I'm like, that's awesome, but I don't know how that works, because
totally.
I mean, and it's interesting so what's more interesting is actually you're introverted, like quite significantly. So
Yeah.
actually you would prefer to be
I'd be
alone, but
happy,
you're
yeah.
asking everyone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I'd happily go and work in my office at home and not see anybody, and that's kind of my happy space.
Yeah.
But I think for what we're trying to do and what we're trying to grow as a business, it's not ideal. It's not the most efficient way or the most optimized way of doing it.
Yeah, and I think there's, like you said, there's just almost intangible, and it's difficult to say from a performance background, like where you should be measuring almost everything you can. You think you should measure, but there's some things you just can't measure right now, and that is that weight of like how much that conversation that might be privy to matters. I say this, like this version of the simulation is the best.
Yeah.
So like we do, like, we're gonna have the metaverse, we're gonna have all these other things, but this one we're in right now, even the people, I think I said to you, people said to us, why you spend all this money on a studio and build a studio when you can just do podcasts in Gemini Notebook? Like AI does podcasts now. Why do you think that's a business? And it's like, actually, it's more a business. Like, it's more beneficial to have real conversations because there's so many fake ones out there. Fake ones,
100%.
generative
Yeah.
ones,
Yeah.
like made up ones that just don't mean anything. They don't have any soul or whatever it is. And again, I'm talking intangibles,
Yeah.
like stuff like that doesn't. We talk signal and noise, but like that makes the studio gold because in a world of AI slop and even good AI,
Yeah.
this is just so much better because it's real.
It's
It's like it's
exactly.
a real thing.
100%.
Um,
Yeah.
and I absolutely, we were talking, sounds like you in the rabbit holes as well as I am, like with the different, probably for further progressed. Actually, we need to talk about what you launched as with the geo space, but we'll get there. I think we still got team stuff from your team to get there, and then we didn't talk about your upbringing in terms of your parents. You did in the car ride over. You said your dad was a military specialist, and you are somewhat of a military specialist. What's the difference again between you and your dad?
Yeah. So my dad, since we were born, has been a bit of a military history buff, historian. He completely self-taught, but so knowledgeable. I think he's been part of kind of like military history society, etc., and just like an avid scholar in that space. Like his military library of kind of the books he's collected is insane. So I think it's always been a part of our lives and our upbringing. You know, everyone else would go on family holiday and they would check into the hotel or wherever. We'd stop at all the battlefields and have, like, you know, our toasted sandwich on the side of the road on a soldier's grave from 200 years ago, because, you know, he'd be looking and saying, you know, what is the story behind this? Who are the people that are involved? What are their stories? So I think his passion for that rubbed off on me at an early stage as well. So kind of share that passion. I'm not nearly on the level he is in kind of how he studied it and kind of all of those elements. But yeah, big interest of mine. And I think it's something that I've made a fairly big part of my life. I mentioned to you in the car, I was very, very close to joining the British Army after school and varsity. Had some quite serious conversations with my parents, and, you know, my mom was obviously not keen on that. Um, and who knows, like, there would have been a very different life path, because, you know, you look back now at kind of the things that have happened since I would have made that decision.
Mm.
You know, things like Afghanistan, all of those things
You'd have been deployed.
would have been a part of that. So for me, it's always been, I guess, there at the back of my mind. You said just now, would you make a different decision if you could do it over again? I think I probably would. Um, and I say that with a big caveat, because obviously it would mean a very different life, and I wouldn't have my family now and all of those things, which obviously I would never want to change. But if you had a chance to do life differently and take a different path from a career point of view, I think I would try that. I would want to test myself to see if I could do that, if that makes sense. But anyway, long story short, getting back to what, like, I've just brought a lot of that into my life, I think. So kind of the discipline around, you know, work and training and all of those things, I think I take a lot of it from what I've read in that space, and kind of the parts of it that resonate with me. So the closest I got was my kind of compromise to my mom. It sounds ridiculous. Is I did a year or two of police reservist work in Joburg, and that was kind of a way for me to try get a taste of what, you know, that kind of military structure, discipline, etc. could be.
Mm.
But yeah, it's something that interests me a lot, and it's still something that I'm constantly reading and learning about as well.
Yeah, so I bring it up for a number of reasons because I'm fascinated by it, but I've never been that way inclined. And I also ask often, the question comes up with our guests is just like, do you think it would have been a good thing for you? Like, because my dad, you used to have to do it.
Yeah,
It used to be
yeah,
prescribed. So you had to do your military training. And I was thinking, well, that kind of, like, would I have been sorted out? Like, I'm like, now I know to make my bed in the morning. I do that every day.
yeah,
But I didn't for the longest time. I kind of just like was, and it's like, it's the best thing because I've got one task and I'm starting the role.
yeah.
Got one checkbox and I love my checkboxes and getting them ticked and getting it
Exactly,
done.
exactly.
So like, so you feel like you missed that you would go do that?
I think it fits my personality and what I think I would have done well. Like, obviously, put all the politics and all that aside. I mean, the point of the military is you're fighting for somebody, and
Mm, mm,
that raises a whole lot of questions, and you need to be comfortable with, you know, what you're standing for and all of those things. But
mm,
put that aside completely. I think the way of life and the way it's built very much mirrors how I drive myself, if that makes sense.
mm,
So the structure, the process, all of those things are a key part to how I make myself productive and how I do what I do. And I think that would have suited me. Do I like the authority side of it? No, I don't think many entrepreneurs like being told what to do or how to do things. But again, I think that serves a purpose. And then once you push through that, the bigger, and we were saying in the car, like the leadership elements that are involved,
mm,
the systems and the structures behind it really resonate with me.
mm.
And I think I would have enjoyed it. I think, yeah.
So how does it tie into a love for heavy metal, which is like mosh pits and well,
Yeah.
educated me because I don't know, like, but like going to Rage Against the Machine, no, the Tomorrowland, what was it again?
Hellfest.
Hellfest.
Yeah.
How did that? It's like that's a yin and yang. So you love the structure, but then is heavy metal the total opposite, or?
I, it's weird. Like, for me, the heavy metal side of things, and like, I don't know, you end up in kind of chatting in therapy sessions to different people, and they always ask the question, like, what does it mean to you? Like, it doesn't mean anything. I think it's always been like, I just love the music. I suppose if I had to try understand it, like, it's not mainstream. It's like a little bit, the characters involved are very interesting, and yeah, I just love the music, I suppose. And it's kind of grown from, yeah, like I said, listening to that first Metallica tape to far, far heavier stuff than
Mm,
that. And I suppose for a little while when you're younger, you make your music your identity.
mm,
So I suppose kind of towards the end of high school, it gave me an identity, and our group of friends. It was a way for us to, yeah, to have that kind of identity. But like, you would expect them to grow out of it and to kind of then, you know, kind of lose it over the years. But it's the opposite. It's kind of just become a part of life. And
and you kept
there's,
it. You kept together as a group,
yeah,
and that the
yeah,
group of you
we're
from
still
school.
friends as well. But I think, yeah, it's not deeper than just loving the music. Yeah,
So what I'm getting is, like, I love this because I feel this in work and in life in general. But some of life is science, some of it's art, some of it's science. I think that maybe it's the art. Like it doesn't
yeah.
have to be explained because it can't be
It doesn't.
really
It doesn't.
yet.
And I think the only other element that maybe comes into it is like, it's just maybe anti-establishment, which I know is totally contradictory to what I said about the military side of things. But I've always struggled being told what to do.
Mm,
Always. Like,
mm.
and if you can say there's a music genre that is, I suppose metal is that, but that's as far as I can take it. Otherwise, I just love it. Yeah.
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 Okay. That's interesting. It's interesting because it's a yin and yang, and then it's a
Yeah.
performance like is strict process, military precision
Yeah.
like that, and then where it's like, but it is interesting because I guess some of those military movies that we would watch, they would have metal. They would probably have like battlefields is like that's what you're going into,
Yeah. Fair enough. Like the soundtrack to it, I suppose.
get you amped to
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Um, okay, back to I mean the life and algorithm, and and you are now an award-winning. It's global now, as I understand it. So it's you. Do you want to take me how that came about? UK
Yeah.
and
Sure. So I think um, a year or so into, it was in the first year. I brought, or Simon, my business partner, joined the business. He was also at Quirk. He was actually my manager at Quirk. He is from the UK, ex Jellyfish, UK. Um, yeah, so he joined the business. He's a little bit older. He always gets given gears for this. He's a little bit older, but brought a lot of, I guess, the experience I didn't have in kind of team management, the people side of the business. I've learned a lot from him in that space. So he joined within that first year. Ashley my other business partner, also ex-Quirk. He had a bit of a gap in between. He went to like Isobar and a couple of different other businesses. So we brought quite a lot of the Quirk people that I'd worked with. I knew them. I knew they were really strong in the different spaces that they were in. Derek, our data director, also from Quirk. So we kind of pulled all of these ex-Quirk people together. But to answer your question, how did we end up kind of the global side of things? So Simon and Ashley, Simon originally from the UK, Ashley moved back, his family are from there. Both of them moved back to the UK, and it was just the perfect opportunity to start a footprint on that side. And they have a small team with them that side as well. Yeah, we've always had, I guess, quite a number of global clients. And again, it was a good space to just manage that global client base from that side of the world as well. So time zones are a bit better, those sorts of things. So yeah, that's kind of.
And the rand goes a long way.
The rand goes a long
So we
way.
get to bring pounds into the country.
Yeah, very difficult market to get into in our space. So it's not been easy, but yeah.
Why do you think it's? Why do you say that it's difficult?
It's just, I think the number one thing is it's very kind of network driven.
Okay.
As in, you have to know somebody for quite a while. You have quite a long, I don't know, wine and dining element to the winning the work, etc. there. So it's very difficult as an outsider to break into it, as someone who's unknown and a South African business. So it's just, I suppose, a little cliquey is the best way of putting it.
Yeah.
So it's not been an easy market to just break into, whereas I think we got used to the strong growth we had in South Africa. Like for 7-8 years, it was 30% plus year-on-year growth. It was exciting. It was like almost like on a rocket ship type feeling. Things were just happening. It was much slower, much more of a grind on the UK side of things. Yeah.
Okay. Interesting. And then the next push is to pass the 50 plus. Am I right?
Yeah, that's the next struggle.
Yeah.
We've gotten fairly close and contracted a couple of times. And like I was saying earlier, like these different phases and these different feelings from a business point of view, for me, it definitely feels like that right now. Personally and for the business as a whole. I think, you're trying to now shift from a founder-led or founder-run or director-run business into a business that needs to exist post us. We're not going anywhere, but we're also not going to be there forever. So how do we turn this into a business that steps beyond that? And I think that brings a whole bunch of challenges from a personal point of view. I think for me, I see massive growth needed in kind of the leadership space, in kind of stepping into a leader of that next phase of the business. But also, how do we start scaling the business, bringing that next level of leader into the business to kind of step up as well? So it's a hard one. I don't have the answers to yet. It's one that we are still figuring out and still working through.
I've had this thing, for some reason, I don't know if it was in your notes or if it was in the prep that we did, it was Dunbar's rule. So, are you familiar with Dunbar's law? So it's the law of tribes. It's like 150 people. So tribes was around 148, but they rounded up to 150. So tribes used to, in this research, they found that tribes used to split at 150.
Okay.
And they'd form another tribe.
Yeah.
And it was because of they broke it down to because of the number of neural pathways and in the brain that you needed to know, or the brain could sustain it, basically, because when you know the butcher and the baker, you also know the relationship between the butcher and baker. They don't like each other or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you know that the guy's doing this with whatever. And it's a lot of information. And past 150, it just falls apart.
Yeah.
And that's why some companies actually structure their I've heard of factories generally, I think it was like it only gets to 150, and then they buy the plot next door.
Okay.
Or wherever, and they build another 150. I think creative or agency life is a different number.
Yeah.
Because we're very different people. And and they're like, so but there's Daniel Priestley talks about like 13, I think is his number, when the changes, like you're talking about, I'm sure you would have seen that climbing the mountain where there's little pitfalls and you climb and you get to the next level, you're going to unlock it. But his was 12 was great, and then you get 13th, and for some reason 13 then will just there's like a new dynamic. Suddenly, like that person doesn't like that person, and then so Dunbar, I figured that 30 is one of those numbers like that in my mind where the agency that I worked in, that it totally changed.
Yeah.
Everything changed when we got to that number, and it was like there's a lot more complexity that's being handled.
Totally. I think, I don't know what the number is, but you're right. Like that 10, 12, 15 mark is almost comfortable. It's a good space to be in. You can, I don't want to say control everything, but you know what's going on and you're able to influence where you need to. And I think when it gets bigger, yeah, it's a whole new kettle of fish. I think there's always the challenge though, you if you keep ownership of your business, you maybe have more control over that, and you can find that sweet spot of where you're comfortable, and you can be, massively profitable and successful at whatever size you are. I think when you have external shareholders, then that brings in a whole new dynamic of maybe they're not comfortable with you being at 12 or 15. They want you to be continually growing and scaling. So I think it's all part of the challenge. I think it's all part of, like, what journey do you take yourself and your business on if you are the founder. Like I often look at, and we were talking about them in the car, Jellyfish as an example. Like Rob Pierre is I think he just left in the last year or so. I don't know if he was founder, but he was very early days there, CEO of Jellyfish, and how he built and scaled that business. It's mind blowing. How did he get that right? And I think you try learn from these different lessons and different structures, but it's a massive challenge. And kind of how much can you scale an agency? At what point do you start losing that core thing that made you what you are in the first place? And I think you see this, like WPP as an example. I mean, we all see globally what they're doing, contracting agencies, merging them together, etc. At what point do you lose what made that agency good and special at what it does? And it's the example used around the podcast room as well, right? It's like you have to have something unique, something that sets you apart from everybody else. And I don't know where I'm going with this, but is there a point where you get too big and you lose that, or I don't know. But
Well, let's go with it because I think you exactly. I'm totally resonate with what you're saying, and I feel this of like Google, which I'm like a huge fanboy of Google.
yeah,
And like, I remember when I was at TBA, I got someone. I still carry this but I never even did the interview. But someone at Google said you should interview for this role, and I was like, what? I was like, cheap, I could work. I was doing a sales role. It would have been like a sales role, selling ads or something like that, and working with agencies because I was at an agency, and but like I was a huge fanboy, and I didn't. I left and did my own thing instead. But it's kind of like my military thing.
yeah.
The Google "Don't be evil" mantra that they used to have. I don't know if that scales with RPOs and
I don't think it does, in my view. Like we've internally, like I've tried to, I guess, give the direction of the business around an example. And there was a book, I don't know if you've ever come across it, it's called Unreasonable Hospitality. The guy's
I've
name
heard
is
of it. I'll
Will
add it to the
Gadera.
list. That I've heard this.
It's really good. So essentially, he's the owner of 11 Madison Park, I think, which is the number one restaurant in the world. So it's Michelin star, kind of best in the world restaurant. And essentially, it's like his, I suppose, leadership book around how they built that. And what makes them unique is essentially their principle of how they treat the customer, and they make it completely unique experience. And essentially his principle is the people come to the restaurant, and it's literally based on Michelin star ratings, etc., the best food you can get in the entire world. He will interview someone who's eaten there a year later. They won't remember the food. They can't remember what they ate. They can't remember what was on the menu, but they remember the experience they had there. Like that stands out for them. And if you take that as the example, and then you say, cool, we're an agency, we want to be 11 Madison Park as an example, that unique experience. How do you scale that? Because the scaled version of that is McDonald's. And then if you're the client and you are going with algorithm because you want 11 Madison Park, and then they get bigger and you're suddenly getting McDonald's, both are good businesses, but you get where I'm going. You're not going to serve your
It's not the same
customers
thing.
anymore.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's all stuff that we're trying to figure out at the moment and go, how big is too big? Where do we grow? How do we grow? what are the systems and the way we structure in order to still deliver that quality. Yeah,
And AI involved.
definitely. Yeah. Um, yeah, it's something for us that obviously is a significant, I guess, transition point in how we do what we do. I think we're lucky. We've been, I guess, working in the process and the system of AI for 3 or 4 years now before it became, the massive kind of trending topic that it is right now. We've always, even before there were the accessible models, tried to build our own. I don't want to say it was AI, but it was definitely a machine learning systemized way of doing things. So we had our own tools, etc., where it was very simple, but like if this, then that kind of logic built into it. So that process driven thinking and that data foundation as the feeding into the machine, if that makes sense. And I'm sure you guys know from like an AI point of view, the model's useless unless you give it that data to work with. So we're already in that space. So it's not like a complete industrial revolution for us where we have to reinvent the wheel. But it's more a case of making sure that we are staying on top of it. Like you said, there's a lot of new stuff happening, but also that we're able to then communicate that to our clients. There's a lot, I guess, of questions around the value side of things. You said it just now, I can just do my podcast with whatever platform. It's the same. We can just do our performance marketing with Claude. We don't need algorithm. That's true to an extent, but what you're missing is the strategic real piece that sits on top of that. And I think the delivery of the work itself can be automated and done a lot with AI. So that brings down costs and helps us do a lot more, a lot quicker. Clients will look at that and go, we don't need you anymore. But that, in my mind, and I'd obviously say this because otherwise I wouldn't have a business, but it's the wrong approach. I think there's always been the option to have the cheap resource do the work. You're not really getting that much new in that context. You could always have outsourced that work anywhere at a much lower cost, etc. So for me, it's that value that you give, like you said earlier, that piece that makes it real. And that for us is the strategy and the data behind it. And if I put it really simply, removing all the noise and giving you that clear path of, okay, cool, we know we can automate X, Y, and Z, but here's the road we need to follow. It's step 1, 2, and 3, and these are the results off the back of that. So yeah, AI is exciting, but kind of business as usual in a way for us. Yeah.
Okay, amazing. What I'm getting from you is the expertise is absolutely essential. So, and people have always said that, and there's always been the comeback of, expertise is expensive, but you should see how expensive a rookie is, or
Totally.
yeah,
Yeah, 100%.
go do that,
100%.
and let's see how expensive that becomes for you. So,
and it might still change, but I think at the moment, and you're probably seeing it as well, AI gives you could ask it the question, like, do my SEO for me. And it's going to give you like 30 pages of stuff that is all correct. But what do you do with those 30 pages? Like, there's probably 3 things in there that are really going to move the needle for you as a business. How do you know what those 3 things are? And like, that's still where the value is in having a partner who can guide you. Yeah.
So we've got a methodology for this. I think you have a framework too, and I want to touch on that now. But it actually applies to that exactly, I feel, and as well as a few other things. But it's aggregates. So the world full of information, for instance. So that's why we get so excited about like and AI and that sort of thing. But the world we live in, because it's never been better to be alive. Like, never been a better time. And this is stats based, guys. It's not my opinion. And yes, if you go click on the news right now, choose whichever one you want, Fox or CNN, left or right, doesn't matter. If it leads, it leads. So it's a really terrible place to be in if you go look at the news, because that's what their cycle's about. But what we believe, it's an incredible time to be alive. So, and one of the reasons is because you can learn anything, almost anything online, pretty much. So what it becomes is there's an but now you can also aggregate. So whatever it is you want to learn, you can aggregate by keywords or by hashtags or whatever it is. You can aggregate all the things. The really, really, really significant thing at the moment for human input, or humans in the loop, is the next after aggregate, it's curate. So of all of the stuff you could learn, what's the cream of the what's the top? You need expertise to be able to curate, because to tell you what's good, you have to kind of be an expert, and like that would be the best way to do it. So aggregate, curate. So once you've got a million pieces, you can curate it down to 50 that are good. Then it's collate. So aggregate, curate, collate. Collate's give it order.
Yeah.
So those 50 pieces could be lessons in a course, but communication is way better when it's got order and structure. So that's a collate, aggregate, curate, collate, and then it's disseminate. Then just get it out there.
Yeah.
Then
Makes sense.
publish.
Yeah.
So the 8, so the disseminate is just publish whole thing, but it was another 8. So, but there's another framework. I think you had something similar.
We've got a couple of different frameworks that we use for our client. Essentially, yeah, same sort of thing. I think for us, it's always starting with that data understanding.
Yeah.
I think often, and I don't want to go too much into kind of like the weeds in performance marketing, but so often agencies will just charge straight into the campaign. It's like, hey, client, whether it's paid media, SEO, whatever the story is, the fees X, let's go, let's run with it. And before you know it, you've spent all the budget, and yeah, maybe it's worked, maybe it hasn't, but it's almost like the shotgun approach of let's just throw some stuff out there and something will work. And I think for us, the framework and AI helps this, is always understand, I don't even want to say the market, understand the person that you're trying to reach. And for me, I'm going to kind of diverge here slightly. That's where AI has made our lives so much, I don't want to say easier, but so much more powerful in kind of the algorithm space. So whereas before we'd have to do really significant research at a really high cost and would take a lot of time to actually understand, what you as a person want and related to the brand that we're working with, we're now able to pull in so much information from kind of the digital ecosystem. So the social platforms, the forums you're on. Are you on Reddit? Are you on TikTok? What are you looking at when you're on TikTok? We're able to, and it sounds creepy, it's not, but we're able to, within the privacy laws, etc., really understand what our audience is looking for, what conversations are they having, when they're on Reddit talking to their friends about your industry, what are they saying? We're able to build that whole picture very, very quickly now. And this is not new. People have been able to do this for a long time, but it would take a lot of time and investment. So we can now pull these personas and these kind of information or these, I guess, industry insights very, very quickly, very powerfully, and assimilate them into a strategy that we can then deploy. So to your point, it's always getting that data first and then building off the top of that. I can't remember who I was chatting to someone recently. They were saying the big shift, well, there's a couple of shifts that have happened. The first one was kind of Google and the search engines, almost 20 years ago now. And that was taking the blocker in, because there's always a blocker from a human point of view in being productive. And the one Google solved was the access to the information. So before that, you'd have to go to your library, wade through an encyclopedia, and you'd almost have to know quite a lot about what you were looking for information on to find it. So Google removed that barrier. You can now Google and get information on anything. What AI is now doing is, I guess, democratizing the analysis part. So you now got all that information in Google that's always been there, but the challenge was, how do I process all of this? I can pull all the research. I got, 50 web pages. The time and the blocker there is me processing that, pulling out the key facts and all of those things. AI does that for us. So now the next shift would be, how do we execute on top of that? And I think that's where, agencies like algorithms still play a role. We tell you where to execute on that. Will it change? Quite possibly. Will AI get to where it does that too? Probably yes, but I think that's part of the role in staying on top of all of these things.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. I just aligned I actually heard of somebody, one of our guests, they talked about this person, and they were an agency. One of our guests was an agency owner, CEO, and he spoke about somebody that was a strategist that built his own library in the late 90s.
Okay.
Like, they had their own library. It was in Cockstats and something. It was like a guy, a well-known person. I won't mention the names, but they had their own library, all the magazines, all the books, and that was where they would go and do their research.
Okay.
And I was like, and I used it when I spoke back to him about how exciting this AI is, because it used to take us weeks to research a brief, because you'd go to the library and then Google fixed that.
Yeah.
And then now the answer engines are just making it, they're just doing a lot of that
step further.
further
Yeah.
for you.
Yeah.
And obviously too much of anything can be a bad thing, and even moderation, you have to moderate, like we say. But yeah, I get so excited. I think it's like I went to graduation the other day, Vega, and I was just so excited. It was actually the first time well, it wasn't the first graduation I'd been to, but I went to one just as the year after. So it was 2023, and the generative stuff had just come out, and this was April, so it came out in November the year before, I think. And in April, I was like, I'm so excited for these kids. Like, it's just, and it's also scary because I don't know what they're gonna do.
Yeah.
Like at some
Yeah.
stage, like I don't know what we're gonna do. It's still up in the air what we'll actually do. We don't even know what the things are called now. The jobs that will be in the future and that sort of thing.
Totally.
But I was just like, you guys are entering the workforce, and I'm at ground zero with you. Like I know little to nothing about generative AI because it came out in November.
Yeah.
I've been a fanboy of AI and like for years and looked and read books and stuff like that. But like this stuff, nowhere. And we all get to start together, and you have tools now that like just can give you superpowers.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I think there's a risk in that too, though, and we're seeing it in our business. So we've built a lot of our own internal kind of agentic stuff that literally will take what a junior or a mid-level SEO person could do, and it can do all of that. And like I said earlier, where the value we plug in is that layer on top. The problem then is when you've got those junior and mid-level kind of people in the business that are wanting to learn and grow, you give them a tool like that, they don't have to do it themselves. It's like a couple of clicks and it generates it. And the risk there is you're then passing that on to the client. But if you sat that person down and said, do you understand fully what you've created here, what you've done, what the recommendation is? It's very easy for that not to be the case. And I think that's the risk, because I think more and more we're going to cede our thinking and our logic to AI because it's just easier, and it'll be right most of the time. But I think, and I don't know what the answer is to this, but I think there's an element here where...
Damn, because I was going to ask.
Yeah, I think to still have that knowledge yourself is going to be massively powerful.
Yeah.
Yes, you're going to feel like everyone else is kind of fast tracking and kind of skipping a few steps to catch up to you and passing you. But I think as soon as we just cede all of that to AI and go, cool, it's done, and I'm not going to check it because I'm sure it's right. Or actually, I don't even know how to check it because it's told me stuff that I don't understand, but I'm just going to do it. Therein lies the risk for me, I think. Yeah. And it's not just in our industry. I think it's in all industries.
Yeah. So I told you my wife is a lawyer by trade, and I thought for a long time I actually thought that was one of the first professions to go, but I don't know about that exactly. I'm not sure when it does go, but I also realized that it's actually also a creative profession in a way, because yes, it's black and white, but there's ways to interpret words.
Yeah.
And that sort of thing. The one that then makes sense to me next becomes top of the list is the finance thing, except that the risk involved with having your finance outsourced to AI might be very, very terrifying.
Yeah.
But the thing with the lawyer and maybe with the finance is there's no more junior roles. So how do those people learn?
Exactly.
That's what you're getting at.
Exactly.
So the way that we're looking at it is I like everyone to experiment with their own personal brand.
Yeah.
And try to build that up. And then do the things but you don't have the token. You don't have the token. You have a limited amount that you can do, but you have to test what's working, what's not.
Yes. Yeah.
Because, and we said we would talk EO at some stage, but the EO way we approach problems, because it's with other entrepreneurs, and I try this first with team members, and then until if it doesn't work, I have to be more directional. So I give them their shoulds, like you should go call the client now because this is my experience share didn't work. So we approach it with experience share, which is a story, and then it's like, cool. So this is, and then they can get. So it's another way of them experiencing the journey of like, yeah, that worked for me. I'm gonna try it on this, and then and it's their space. It's been difficult. Sorry, it's been difficult for me personally, because I've had a personal brand in the bank, like in the lockers, for like 15 plus years. Like I bought a domain. I've been sitting on one domain specifically, still hasn't gone live, and for 15 years I've been paying that $10 or whatever it is, like every year. Just seem like I'm one of those guys that trades domains, but it's not. It's like literally and it's maybe it's also difficult to do for yourself, and that's the point. Is like do it for yourself, and then you should treat yourself like you someone you respect and love, and you should do that, and then make good stuff with that, and then we apply it to the business, and we're trying to get that right, but it is
Definitely.
difficult.
I think that's 100% the one pillar that we have. Like you said, figure it out, learn, build. The other element in this, people don't, I think, internally look at me like I'm crazy. The juniors and mids don't have access to that AI tool we've built until they've done it manually and have mastered it. And I think often that's counterintuitive because it's like, well, we're struggling with capacity. We could do so much more. Just open the floodgates to everybody. But as soon as we do that, you fast forward. That's where the quality's gone. That's where you put that person in front of a client, and
they can't
the
explain.
client says, here's the question, and the person won't be able to answer. So I think that's kind of how we're doing it, is to say, on the one hand, learn the technology, play around, like you said, build whatever, break stuff, build stuff. That's cool. But the things that we've built, tested, and we know are part of our core operating system that do give you superpowers in that space. You need to understand how to do that manually before you use that. And I think that's key.
Yeah, and it's like use the abacus before you get the calculator, sort of thing.
Yeah, totally.
Because it's obvious. Yeah, I totally get it. And then they'll know, like, it's often a great place to be in the world where you could understand what you don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's the scariest thing, is unknown unknowns. And
Yep.
like, so, well, and known unknowns is the best place. So you can know, like, okay, then if the question does come from the client, they don't just like blurb something out. They're like, you can have that thing where you say, well, I'll need to come back to you
Yeah, it's
on
okay
that.
not to know. Yeah.
Yeah, because there's just so much to know.
Exactly. And it goes back to that confidence thing we've spoken so much around as well. You can't be confident in what you're doing if you're a specialist, if you don't know your stuff. And that doesn't mean you have to know everything, but what you just said now actually requires a lot of confidence in a client meeting to say, clients, I don't know the answer. I know a lot about what I do, and I'm confident in that, but I'll come back to you. Let me do the research. Let me figure it out. Someone who's not confident will make something up or crumble in that situation. So I think it's all part of building that confidence and that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then making stuff up is I think the difference between confidence and arrogance, I guess, one of them.
Yeah. Yeah.
Is like if they just go with it, then they don't know, and they know they don't know, and they're just like, oh, I'm going to say it anyway.
Exactly. Yeah.
We can get stuck into politics there, but we're not going to. I actually want to transition from there to your case study, which was the Spotify one.
Yes. The warped.
Yes.
Yeah.
So why that? I will have links to this, guys, in the
wrapped. I don't know why I say
wrapped. Wrapped. And that we'll have this in the show notes. So Spotify Wrap. Why that one? I love it.
Yeah, for me, it's, I guess, one of those campaigns that resonated personally. I think maybe it's a metal thing as well, but like you feel how to put this, like quite personal about the bands that you like, and there's quite a strong community in kind of sharing, and I'm sure you've seen the Spotify Wrap thing. It'll say, you listened to 100 hours of this, and this was your top artist. So I think what was really cool is taking you as the user, which is the customer, the end, the person that Spotify is trying to reach, taking their data and using that as the campaign, which again, in my world, resonates really strongly as well. So you're able to tap into those insights. You're able to make it really personal. There's so many different like levels to this kind of concept that appeal to me. You then are using your target market as the dissemination of your campaign as well. So
because they just for everyone listening and watching, because people share their Spotify Wrapped, like they share the campaign that Spotify did for them, and it's exactly right. Personally, I hadn't thought about that before, but personalization is a massive thing.
Yeah.
And it's able to do that because it's your personal data, and you get to share it with the world now. And you're sharing Spotify's lovely little logo and colors.
And I think last year was the first year they actually put any kind of traditional media behind it. So I think they did a TV campaign for it for the first time last year. For the prior, however many years it is, like 4 or 5 years, if not longer, it's been completely user shared. It kind of goes viral, every year when it comes out. Like you said, everyone shares on the different social platforms, etc., etc. So yeah, just really a really cool insight into how do we take data, how do we turn it into something creative, because the way they present it is also really cool. It brings in kind of gamification elements. There's just so much in there. And then interestingly, I think it was 2024, they seeded all of that to AI. So they were like, cool, we'll have our agent package it all together. And there was a huge like pushback because it just felt like, they'd taken the cheap route and it was AI slop. And so they had a massive backlash to that, which they turned around in 2025 and kind of did it properly, where they, still use AI to help them enrich the data, but the whole creative and the presentation layer was done by people again, and it actually felt personal and felt real. So I just think there's so much in that whole story and that whole concept that is, you can just take so much out of it. Yeah.
And they do it. One of the interesting things I think of looking at it was like the moat around it, because you can't do it.
Yeah.
No one else can just do this because you need data. So they have all that data.
Got everything. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
then they just and what we spoke about quite a lot earlier was it's actually, it can be boring. The data can be boring unless you do it like that.
Exactly. Yeah.
It
Exactly.
personalizes, and so it's a great, yeah, for no, companies tomorrow couldn't just launch and do this unless they had that. So that's the moat bit. And then just, yeah, I hadn't thought about the personalization. I think that's great. It's user generated content. So
Exactly.
it ties into one of
Yeah.
our principles of user generated content. Totally remarkable. And then interesting enough, like, which I don't think people get, and people don't think about this a lot, but there's that phrase, I'm sure you would have heard it, where it's like, if the product's free, you're the product.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, it's a lovely campaign. In terms of, we mentioned that. So the quote, was there another quote that we had talked about, uh, getting it done? The other quote that you cited was,
Uh, there was
there's
the
a,
1% better
yes.
every
So
day. Yeah.
1%. Where did you get that, and where?
That one is like everywhere. I suppose it's like very like commercialized at the moment. I don't actually know who it was originally attributed to, but it just resonates so much, even though it is kind of like everywhere at the moment.
Mm,
Yeah, and I guess again it just ties to how I approach doing what I do. It's like if you can just be 1% better every day, whether it's in the gym, whether it's if you're a runner, if you're running, bits at work, in kind of your own work output, how you deal with people, how you deal with your family. If you can just be 1% better every day, which is nothing, right? Like, what's 1%? Over a week, over a month, over a year, that very, very quickly stacks up to really, really big improvements. So I think it just resonates. Yeah.
yeah, it compounds. People don't
Exactly.
understand it because it's not linear. It's actually
Yeah, exactly.
exponential in a way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think when we were talking about companies in, uh, and I think this is often true, and it's going to be very interesting in the AI space. Is like big companies struggling to shift their focus because they're just too set in their ways and too big. In AI, one of the projections was the guys had running bets. When I say the guys, I'm saying to like Sam Altman level guys, and those of the when is going to be the first $1 billion company made of one person is gonna be launched, or not just
Yeah, it's
launched,
going to happen.
but
Yeah.
yeah. So that that's one of the things I think, maybe we can talk about that, because we got questions from the various teams. We got our questions, and your team has sent questions. But the thing about AI is like, I was fortunate enough to be in a company, like, it sounded like similar growth to the Quirk one, and it was one of the greatest things. It's one of the proudest things, and I love being in a position where I can provide employment. Excuse me. And then being part of that process is just like, it's a gift. It's amazing. And I said to somebody recently, like, we got to 70 people, and it was probably for a day, and then we got funny stories on that. But like, we got there, and it was just an amazing thing. Like, those jobs did not exist until we
It's
did the
amazing. Yeah.
thing. So it's
No,
exactly what you
for
guys
sure.
have done. And then, but right now we're at 6, and I'd love to get to 7, but I want the 7 people to be able to do 70 people's work. They're the same up, and they can
Yeah.
with the tools if
Yeah.
we
Yeah.
if we do it correctly. So like the algorithm, you might stay around these and around these numbers, and if I can, I don't know, if I can position that 70 is amazing, and maybe one day, but it's a kind of a vanity unless the revenue and the sustainability and everything match that. The numbers of employment only work if I'm playing a really long game,
Hmm.
and I love if I can get that right. Uh, get that right and do that with, I think we can do that with AI.
And I think that's what we need to try figure out, right? I agree with you. I think that for me is the challenge for algorithm moving forward as well. It's I think that I don't want to say old school because it's like up until like 2 years ago it wasn't. Like growth doesn't mean people anymore. And that has a lot of consequences, like and connotations. What does that mean? Bigger picture for employment
Humanity.
and
Yeah.
humanity, number one. So like that's a whole separate conversation. But if we zoom in on like us as a business owner, what does that mean right now? Like, you've got two paths you can go down, and I think the one you've just outlined is definitely the future. So it's how do we retool the business? How do we start building that tool and tech layer that's going to enable us to do that? But also, I don't know what that looks like yet. Like, if you had the same number of people now, like 6, 7 people, and you had triple the revenue, cool, AI can help with the product, but like, I can't yet see how you're going to be managing that size business with those few people. We'll get there, but I guess what I'm saying is there's a lot to figure out in kind of how that rolls out. The delivery of the work is just one part of it. And what does that look like for those individual employees? Because at the moment, like we'll have it in our business where you're used to managing, I don't know, 5 campaigns, and then we say to you, here's another 10, so you're now managing 15 campaigns. The initial reaction is like, I can't do that. Like, that's too much work. And it's this constant like shifting goalpost, if that makes sense, of, well, here's some tools that'll help you do it. Okay, I can do it. But again, where's that new boundary? So there's a lot to figure out.
Yeah. Okay, perfect. Let's get into the questions from your team. And I love these ones we're going to highlight is performance agencies often get treated like disposable vendors. What is the operational framework that you use at Algorithm to transition from vendor to indispensable strategic partner?
So this one, I think, it goes back to what I was saying just now around, do you want to be the 5-star restaurant or the McDonald's? I think that's a big part of it. I think where the question is coming from, like context for us, is often you're brought in for a specific job or a role. Like, I don't know, we need to be more visible in the search engines. So let's chat to Algorithm. They're really good at that. So we'll bring them in for that. Whereas where we want to come in is say, cool, we can help you with that. But there's a much bigger requirement here. You want to show up in search engines because you're not getting enough leads, right? Or you're not getting enough revenue from your e-commerce store. That's the real business problem. The not showing up in Google is just an extension of that. So I think that's kind of the messaging we want to.
That's the messaging,
yeah. That's the messaging, and that's how we answer that question to clients and to our internal team. If we can't show up and say, here's how we solve your business problem, you're always going to be at the end of that chain.
Yeah,
If
you're treating the symptom, not the
symptom. If you're just there to solve a tactical issue, as soon as you've solved that, your value is gone. So I think and I think that's where the question is going, how do we solve that? It's a case of how do we use that data and what makes us unique to plug in and give that value to clients to say, cool, we can help you with that, but here's your actual problem. Here's how you approach that. Here's the right strategy. And we'll see it as soon as you start becoming that like trusted advisor. So if they have an exco meeting and there was a chair there for Algorithm to talk to the performance piece, that's where you're not going to get chopped as soon as someone needs to chop somebody. So it's putting your value in the right place. You're not just a service provider, you're a partner, and that's the key thing.
I love that. That's the exact language. I love partner, because that's we talk about client partners and service partners and that sort of stuff instead of and not being my understanding, like a service provider, that's Vodacom, MTN, all that crap. Banks, I love you guys, whatever, as much as I can, but like disposable, not like making my life like that's proper being part of. I love that seat at the table, and then understanding. We work with this insight before idea or concept before idea. So the insight is insights will be based on data, information from data, and all that sort of stuff. So insight before idea, idea before execution. So traditional SEO was built around ranking and making ranking on a results page people actually scroll through. Now AI answers just tell people the answer directly. is SEO still the right word for agencies, for what agencies do, or has that job fundamentally changed into something else?
Yeah, good one. I think the word does need to evolve. I think it's just become so embedded. It's weird for my career. Like the first 10 years was trying to explain to people what SEO was and to let them know that it was a thing. We got to that point where everyone's like, cool, we get it, we know what it is, and now it's all changed again. So I think to answer the question, SEO was very focused on search results only, like Google, Bing, but predominantly Google. The way we look at it now is organic is the channel, right? So in performance marketing, you got paid and you got organic, and SEO used to be organic. So that's the channel. We don't refer to it as SEO anymore. It's kind of the word that I've been using a lot is something called social engine optimization. So it's kind of it's not social media. I know it's confusing, but it's bringing the human back into it. So long story short, SEO used to be predominantly just optimizing for Google. If I optimize for Google, I know 90% of people are on Google. So it doesn't really matter if I'm optimizing for you. If I show up on Google, I'm going to capture you because that's where you are. The thing that's changed is now people have choice. I don't have to just go to Google to do my research. I can go to ChatGPT or Claude or Gemini or whoever. And there's a lot of kind of shift away from, especially in the younger audiences, to things like TikTok as a search engine. So like, I
Mm.
don't want to read your 10 links on Google. I want to look at a short form video, and that's how I learn. And it's better for them. That's how they engage with content. So long story short, if we look at it as social engine optimization, it's bringing all of those elements together. And I think that's how we approach it. So SEO, search engine, no, probably a little bit out of date. Is that a core part of social engine optimization? Yes, it's one of the key things. So we look at the search engines, we look at all the social platforms, we look at all the forums, all the obviously LLMs and the kind of AI side of things. Again, you'll hear things like GEO, which is the generative engine optimization. It's like the AI version of SEO. All of those just get packaged together in my mind into what I'm calling social engine optimization, and you need to be on all of those places.
It's like brilliant basics.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
then what I'm getting from you is and then you optimize for the remarkable.
yeah,
So that what the human, yeah, that's
exactly,
awesome.
exactly, yeah.
Okay, and then with AI compressing execution time on paid SEO and content, what's actually left for agency to be valued in 2 years, and how are you restructuring now to be ready for that? So yeah, we have
We kind
talked
of
through those
covered, yeah, I
through.
think covered that. I think for me, like we said just now, it's the the stat, we'll call it 80%. It's that 80/20, I guess, rule. 80% of the work will be, to a large extent, greater or lesser, automated through different AI tools, etc. Whether it's standard stuff on the market or stuff that we've built, it's kind of irrelevant. The client will benefit from that because we'll be able to do a lot more, a lot quicker. Like I said earlier, does that take away the value of what algorithm brings? No, not in my opinion. So it's a case of that 20% on top then being the value that we provide. So that should be the focus. Don't focus on the 80% because that would always be done anyway. It's the grunt work, it's the slog work, it's the research work, all the stuff that used to take tons of time and effort and hours. Um, it would have been done anyway. We're now just focusing more on the 20%. That's where the value is.
Mm,
Yeah.
okay. Amazing. And we glossed over in your lifeline. Actually, I think we didn't go, and it was one of the things that I meant to sort of get into when you launched the business. You then found out you guys were pregnant,
Mm.
and um, yeah, the kids came, and there was the bit of trauma in that, as I
Yeah, it
understand it.
was a very hectic time for myself and my wife. I think, yeah, looking back on it, it's something that you kind of put in a box and kind of don't think about because it is quite traumatic. So the context there was um, our first kind of born, my daughter Olivia, very very difficult kind of, I guess, birthing process. We'd gone for our final scan, expecting it to be a normal scan. The actual due date was about a week in the future. Um, yeah, we sitting in there, they do like the ultrasound
Mm.
scan, and I just saw the doctor's face like completely change, and kind of gives you like cold chills because she just went from, bedside manner, like a bit chatty and stuff, to just like pure business. It was like, okay, this is happening right now. Got her assistant. She was like, get a theater ready, get a anesthetist ready. Like it literally went into like serious mode in like 3 seconds flat. Anyway, long story short, yeah, the heartbeat was almost like non-existent. So if we hadn't been there at that point in time, my daughter wouldn't have made it. So it was, yeah, hugely traumatic for my wife, especially. Obviously, not having time to kind of be ready and kind of go through the normal, I guess, process, etc., and then kind of just the trauma that came with that as well. I think for her was intense. For me, I think as we said just now, like being in the midst of just having started a business, there was no downtime either. Like I don't say this is like a war story, but I'm sitting there in the hospital on the bed on my laptop taking like client calls while my wife and daughter had just been through this insane process. And I think you don't even realize at the time the cost that has on like your relationships and yourself as well. And I think maybe it's something that business owners or entrepreneurs, like, they don't talk about, like the cost that comes with it. And I think it wasn't like even for a year or so until we started really trying to process that as a family. And I think, yeah, yeah, I get quite emotional going back and thinking about it because, yeah, would, you asked the question just now, would you do something differently? For me, that's a big one. It's something that I've really thought about a lot is, would I do that differently if I could? Definitely. Like if I could be there 100% for them and not be, half working, rushing out of the hospital to get back to meetings, etc., especially given the context of what had happened. I definitely would. So yeah, it was a very scary moment.
So,
And it
so
was, sorry, it was like the last piece to it was kind of a weird day because I just in the last month or so got in a small office space at another agency. They were kind enough to like help us get set up. I had two people on the team at that point, so it was myself and the two team members. Um, and my wife Danielle was going for lunch with a friend, but she hadn't seen the space yet. So it was like she came around to have a look. And I just remember like being like so proud of this little business that was in this like small dingy dark room, like first employees in there, like hustling, working hard, and kind of being so proud and showing her all of this, to the complete flip of like the shock of getting that call from her saying like, you know, this is happening, like this is, you know, and then kind of everything that followed off the back of that. It's, yeah, quite a,
so I remember working at the hospital when my dad was sick and he didn't make it out. But the I also look back and think like, cheapers, wow, I was answering emails when I could have just been.
yeah.
And I feel like sometimes when you go back and you look back at the past, it's very easy to be critical of you. Do you feel like your wife and your daughter, has it been something you've had to deal with, like with them? They knew, or they just knew that you? I think you like often. I felt, at least, at the time I was doing the best I could. And
Yeah.
I would do it differently now.
Yeah.
But like, would my dad appreciated more time with me? I was there with them in presence, and
But I think that's a big part of what stands out for me. So, and I think in the notes asked to like a nomination on an incredible machine, and this is why I've said my wife and I guess wives and women in general and partners in general of someone who has started a business, because they went through that trauma the same, if not far worse. Like, not if not, it was far worse for my wife, but she supported me and the business in, like you said, not in understanding, if that makes sense, and giving that space, and then knowing that that is something that's a journey that in one way I'm selfishly on because it's my business and like I've built it and it's like another child in a way, but it's also a journey that we're on as a family. And for her to be able to give that support even though she's going through worse and I'm not there to give that support properly, is massively powerful. So I think it's not a negative thing per se, but it's definitely something that you don't realize the toll it takes on you and your family relationship. So
Mm,
my daughter, no, doesn't she doesn't know, like, and it doesn't impact there at all. But I think my wife and my relationship was definitely it was something that you can't just take for granted. I think you have
mm,
to
mm,
intentionally acknowledge it and go, that was hectic for me, but it was way more hectic for you, and almost say thank you for giving me the space to still focus on what I wanted to. Like, it's a weird one, yeah.
and you've got two children now. The
Yeah.
second came.
Uh, Also not smoothly, but a little less scary. But yeah, still early. He was in NICU for a week or so as well. Just
Yeah,
like a
okay.
big toaster thing they put him in.
Okay.
And all turned out fine. But again, it was a case of I just remember, and maybe it's like you said just now, you harsher on yourself, but I just remember not being present. Like I remember rushing there, seeing him, and then rushing back to work, and like, would it be nice to just be like, okay, I'm 100% in the space because everything turned out fine, and I'm so grateful for that. But if it hadn't, would I
Mm,
judge myself for like not being there 100%? So I think it's just, yeah, again, that I don't want to say cost, but that awareness of what impact it has on
mm,
relationships.
mm. Have you read The Power of Now?
I haven't. I haven't.
Have you heard of it?
I have. Yeah.
Okay.
I sold a lot of them at exclusive books. It was
Okay.
very, very
Okay.
popular
Okay.
for a
Yeah.
while. Yeah.
So to confirm, your Incredible Machines.
Is my wife Danielle? Yeah. Yeah. I think, and like I said, any woman who's in a career and still manages all of those other elements, and like my wife Danielle as an example, she is very career driven, very successful in her own career, and yeah, I think to be able to manage all of that, because we know what goes into a career, like managing all the career side of things, but still being the linchpin that make sure that the kids are alive and doing all the things that they need to do, and yeah, keeping that family, that is truly incredible. Like, I'm focused on one piece, she's focused on all three, and
Mm,
that's incredible.
perfect. Is there anything we haven't talked about that we should have?
I don't think so. I think we covered.
Do you want to close with anything?
I'm kind of thrown now after I've just spoken about um, that last piece. Something I want to close on, maybe just in that vein. I think it's off. Maybe it's just not spoken about where I've heard, but I think from a entrepreneur, from a business owner point of view, and anyone actually, like, just to know that there is kind of support in that kind of relationship space. I think I was always quite isolated in my focus and kind of looked at things like depression and burnout, and I was like, yeah, is that really a thing? Like, in a bit of a judgmental way. And until you're in that space, you actually can't understand what people are going through, and it's really humbling when you are in that space. And I suppose that's something that I would like to change from my side, is just to be more open to realizing that that is a very real experience for people. And I think I found that out only once I got into it. And now I'm kind of trying to verbalize this badly, but yeah, I think just be aware that there is an impact to you as a person and to the
Mm,
relationships, regardless of what business you're in, regardless, like, if you're building something, there's going to be a cost associated with it, and yeah, just get help if you need it, I think. Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Well, I think that's
Sorry on
incredible.
that
No, that's amazing. It's been incredible. You
dark
verbalized.
ending. Yeah.
I don't know. I think it is. It's not a necessarily a dark one. It's one that, well, we bring it to the light too. I saw a stat. Sorry, I'm going to keep it going. There was a stat that 83% of all suicides, and suicides happen every minute of every day. Globally, apparently, the stats were 83% of all stats are men
Yeah. Okay.
taking their own lives.
Okay.
So I think it's the positive spin of what oh, not spin, the positive take on what you've said is to be open and know that there is help out there, and you just need to ask for it. The one of our guests previously was a woman, she said, "You don't ask, you don't get," and that's something I try to remember as often as I can, and it's a form of openness. So I love that you're ending it on openness,
Yeah.
because that's like the key. We have these four A's. It's not ours, borrowed again from someone, stolen from somebody else, but it's like awareness, acceptance, action, and then adherence to the thing. So like, and you loop, and to be open and to be present and be aware is that's the first thing you need.
Yeah, exactly.
So it's a beautiful ending.
And I think, very last point, I think so often, like, there's this glorification of building a business or like any of those things. It's like, it's almost been built up in the media to be like this, like, the only way to say it is there's like a glorification of it. And I think there's definitely a side to it that no one talks about enough. And I think that goes back to what I just said. Yeah.
Thank you. The incredible
Thanks, guys.
Graeme Stiles.